Here's how I built a fully functional driving sim, complete with a pedal setup, a wheel, a sequential shifter, and a handbrake, all using materials that I found in my own home. Like many humans, I have the inexplicable desire to recklessly drive an Asian imported car with little regard for my safety or the safety of others. I believe that there exists a true path to inner peace, and that path lies within the bosom of a vehicle, cruising through a rectum-tight road that resembles a pubic hair, all the while driving recklessly as if there is a pregnant woman in the backseat going into labor. But unfortunately, I don't have access to a Japanese import car, nor do I have access to a woman who is going into labor, nor do I have the ability to respawn after I inevitably wrap myself around a pole at the speed of a Genshin Impact fan when they see a miner across the street. And in real life, there is the very real chance that I will run over a child, or even worse, a dog. But I still do think that there is great joy in commandeering a vehicle as if I am God's strongest drunk driver. So, I fill that void in my heart with racing sim games. Some of my fondest memories come from driving digitally, speeding through courses with my hands gripping the wheel. Wait a minute. I don't have a wheel. I drive with a keyboard and mouse. My pedals and shifters are all buttons on a poorly optimized membrane keyboard that lays on my desk. Oh great heavens. Alas, it seems that I am still too much of a broke peasant to even fake driving my own car. I don't exactly have the fiscal equivalent of a dogshit pair of shoes to be able to afford a driving sim setup. There's no way that I can get one. Or is there? There are several components to address when making a driving sim setup. There are even more problems when you're building with packaging materials, bits of trash, and metal wiring. There are many moving parts, and I will be going through each part, showing how I did it and issues that I ran into along the way. And as a last disclaimer, I do not know shit about real cars. This is a YouTube video about making a driving sim using literal trash and cardboard. So if your balls start itching because I made the cum shifter 9000 2 nanometers too far to the left, or the angle of my driving wheel doesn't follow regulations stated in Section 3, Clause 2 of the JDM Femboy Supra Association's regulations, please shut the fuck up. Alright, now I'm gonna go through a quick PowerPoint presentation outlining my plan for building it. It's appropriately titled How to Make a Car from Garbage by Taco Ball. So first off, we have to start with some background. Here are some photos of a driving sim that I made in the past. I call it the Shit Sim V1. It was the biggest piece of shit I ever created. You can see the pedals are made of, I don't even, what is that? Cardboard box, a Mac keyboard, and some flip-flops. So obviously the best engineering the world has ever seen. And you can see that the wheel is a Hyundai logo taken from a car. So clearly I'm a genius. Coming to mind when I'm gonna make the pedals, here are the challenges that I'm thinking of. Number one, I'm thinking about the safety of the hardware. I do not want to crush the keyboard. I'm worried about rigidness and reliability of the functionality, which means that when I press the pedal, I want it to work 100% of the time. That was an issue that I had with the first Shit Sim. The third challenge is that I want it to have enough spring back force, like a spring or something that has enough force to go against my foot. And of course, I just want it to be durable so it lasts a long time. Now, the handbrake and the shifter. In the first Shit Sim, I did not have a handbrake and a shifter, so this will be the first one that I make. Again, I'm worried about durability, but also I want to make it easy for me to be able to insert and take out the keyboard. I don't want to like trap my keyboard into this mechanism and never be able to use it again. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna be able to put a stupid button on the top of the handbrake so that I can lock it. It's a driving sim anyways. It's not like the car's gonna roll down a hill or something. But also, the shifter that I'm going to be making is a sequential shifter, as opposed to an 8 shifter, which is probably what you've seen. If you don't know what that means, just know that an 8 shifter is a bit more complicated to make mechanically because I'm making it out of trash and cardboard. But also, sequential shifter is easier to use. You can see that the sequential shifter there is the one that looks like the upside down Attack on Titan sword. And finally, the wheel. This is probably going to be the hardest part of the whole thing. Obviously, a design that is similar to the first Shit Sim is not going to fly. That is such a garbage design. It's functional, but I wouldn't even call it functional. I would just say it's like that picture of that like anime man with no body. It's just his head. Like maybe he's alive, but would you really call that being alive? Basically, the challenges that I want to tackle with the wheel. Number one, I want to make it much easier to handle. I want it to be much more rigid and durable because I want it to feel a bit more like a racing wheel. And I want it to be much more reliable, so I needed to detect the mouse movement a lot more reliably than that thing. Unfortunately, I won't be able to get force feedback. Force feedback is when, I'm too dumb to explain it. Here's just an explanation. However, I might be able to simulate caster return, which if you've driven a car, it's that feeling where when you turn, the wheel kind of forces its way back to the center because of the way that the tires are positioned or whatever, some shit, I don't know. But also, in general, I want it to be much more practical. I don't want to make a homunculus. I want to make something that at least resembles a real driving sim. Cool. So now I'm gonna bring you through the process of me building it. Sorry if my voice sounds shitty and nasally. It's allergy season and my butthole's been getting widened by pollen. I started out with this membrane keyboard, which is the same keyboard that I used in the first driving sim that I made, and this stupid little tape dispenser is also from the first driving sim. For the base of it, I debated between using this plastic box and this cardboard box. But obviously cardboard is stronger than plastic, so I chose the cardboard box. Because the tape dispenser, as you can see, that stupid thing is not gonna work. It's gonna get crushed by my beautiful feet. So I took apart some Nerf guns, and I took the springs. So here's a pedal that I used in the first driving sim. As you can see, it is absolute peak engineering, a flip-flop with a wood panel on it. And that's what the pedal looked like, or was going to look like, and that's where the spring was going to go. Pretty straightforward. The design is very pedal setup was going to have 3 pedals. The gas, obviously, was going to be the arrow key, space bar was going to be the brake, and then shift was going to be the clutch. That was the end of day 1. I just basically got everything laid out, and then on the next day, I began putting everything together. Day 2, I was all refreshed and ready and recharged to get to work on this fucking thing. As I said, I just started putting everything together. I installed the springs that I got from the Nerf guns. So the way the pedals work is pretty self-explanatory. I have this tape dispenser, I guess, and then inside of the tape dispenser, there's a 3M hook, and on the 3M hook is the wood panel, which acts as the top of the pedal. On the end of the tape dispenser, there's going to be a little leg. But at the end of day 2, I pretty much had it done, technically. It's still wobbling, so it wasn't perfect, but it was working, and that was a great step forward. It did sound pretty gross, though, I'm not gonna lie. That does not sound healthy for the keyboard. On day 3, I got to work on the steering wheel. So I had this ball pumper, and then it had this spinning tube, so I wanted to use that for the axle. The steering wheel is made of old train tracks from a train set, and also popsicle sticks and styrofoam. So obviously, very solid engineering, very human design, peak. The center part of the steering wheel that would attach to the aforementioned ball pumper axle is made of a wooden tambourine and a plastic cup, and a lot of hot glue. Now, I know it looks shit, okay, but hear me out, okay? It's still much better than the first steering wheel that I had. The first steering wheel that I had in the first driving sim was literally just a Hyundai logo, which is like 1 cock's length wide. It's not that big. It's not a great steering wheel.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
So yeah, there's the completed center axle there, made of the tambourine.
I get it.
So for the actual housing thing, I don't know, of the steering wheel, I use this plastic box. So here I spend some time installing the center axle and then taking out the top part so I can move my fingers around in the guts of it. so I can also install this LED mouse. And I think right about now is a good time to explain how it works. So here's a helpful diagram. Here's the center part of that ball pumper, and then here's the inner tube of the ball pumper which rotates inside of it. The steering wheel and the axle are attached to the inner tube. So when the steering wheel rotates, the inner tube rotates. The LED mouse, the sensor of it is positioned stationary above the rotating pipe. So then when I rotate the steering wheel, the LED mouse sensor will register that movement as a horizontal left-right movement on my screen. And that's how I steer. After installing that wheel, I was actually pretty pleased with the movement I was able to get with it. Obviously, it's not a real steering wheel. It's not going to feel like a real steering wheel. But for my purposes, I was pretty happy with where I was. And here's where I was at the end of day 3. There's that LED mouse in that little box, but I did run into my first issue here. This surface here spinning, being completely smooth, is kind of fucking it up, especially since it's a curved surface. So I have this tape here. It's a bit textured, it's a little porous and rough. If I put it on this spinning bit, maybe the LED mouse can detect it a little bit better. Okay, so I've applied the tape. I'm just gonna see if it works better now. After applying that bit of texture to that tape, the mouse is actually moving much smoother. And I was pretty happy with where I was. For one, it was working. I wasn't expecting it to work, but it actually did. As you can see, I still have to like adjust the sensitivity. But at this point, I pretty much had an automatic driving car setup. But it still wasn't perfect, because if I whipped it around a lot, the mouse would still get off center. So to fix this, I needed a way to recenter the steering wheel when it got off center. I ended up playing around with this program called Auto Hotkey. It's a Windows program that basically lets you make custom hotkeys. However, it's fucking hell and dog shit if you don't know how to program like me. I ended up doing the university student thing, and I had 4 different tabs with 4 different AIs trying to get them to fucking write me a program, and they kept shitting out like bad syntax, or they kept trying to change the program and like making it even more fucked up. Oh my god, I spent so many hours. I went fucking insane. Oh my god, that was the worst part about this whole thing. So here's the finished program. The way it works is that if you hold this button, the mouse will get locked to the center of the screen, which means that the wheel can move freely and the mouse won't move. So I hold that button, the mouse gets stationary, I recenter the wheel, and I lift the hotkey, and then I'm back to normal. So at the start of day 4, I had to do a little bit of work on the pedals because I did some testing, and even though my engineering is flawless, things broke. Yeah, I also did some revisions off screen. I added these vertical walls on either side at the end of the pedal, so that when I pressed down on the pedal, it would go straight. But yeah, I did break it. I abused it a little too much. So I just had to reinstall that, no biggie. So this is where I was at the end of day 4. You can see on my left hand, because I don't yet have a sequential shifter or a handbrake, I'm still using the keyboard. But the steering wheel and the pedals are pretty much done. And so on day 5, I wanted to get the shifter and the handbrake done. So I'm using another membrane keyboard. This one's Bluetooth. So there's me removing the little spaces where I want the keyboard keys to get pressed. This button here is the handbrake, and then those 2 are for the sequential shifter. The idea was that I pull a lever and it hits a button. Here's me digging through a box of scrap just to find that one specific spring, and that spring was going to be on the handbrake. For the base of the handbrake, I used this football inflator, and for the base of the sequential shifter, I used this old like sheath from like a G.I. Joe sword thing, I don't know. And the levers and the levers themselves are made of cardboard tubes. So for the sequential shifter, I had the issue of making it so that the lever would spring back 2 different ways because it was pressing 2 different buttons. Unfortunately, after installing the first spring, it did not have enough strength to pull it back. So I took apart another gun to find a stronger spring, and this one, fortunately, worked perfectly. But yeah, basically, at the end of day 5, I had the whole sim complete. And so here's some footage of that night where I tested it.
2, 1, go!
Where's that car? Where's that car? Is it over for us?
Careful, please.
Sure. Very well. Is he out of the race?
I think he is out of race. Actually, cars wasn't move, dude. Going for something with less than nothing to grip.
Are you a grip enthusiast like me now? It's like the grippiest car in the game. Is your headlight button bugging out? Mine's like
Yeah, the Evo does not have good legs.
headlight.
Medium left, medium left, medium left! Listen to my call!
Good turn, good turn, good turn. Good turn. Watch Child's turn now. Don't get greedy here. Greed is the downfall of man.
Sammy, you will wreck the car! He will not finish! Do you see that?
I hate hairpins. I'm gonna always hate hairpins.
I love hairpins. Oh my. Oh, I need to do repairs.
How good is
The rig is being done by thread. This is my best time.
So here are some problems that I unfortunately could not solve. The first problem that I could not figure out is that for the steering wheel, I couldn't figure out how to simulate caster return. I tried using like one of those things that you see in like an office lanyard. Alternatively, I needed a really long rubber band, but I did not have that in my house, unfortunately. The second issue that I ran into is more of a hardware limitation. So if you've driven a car, you know that if you press down a little bit on the gas, it's only gonna give the accelerating power a little bit. And if you push down really hard, it's gonna accelerate really fast. But you can't do that with a keyboard because a keyboard only has 2 states, which is unpressed and pressed. There's no way to have like an in-between the way that like a controller trigger does. But maybe in the future, I will try it and I'll see if I can use a controller. And the final issue that I ran into is that even if I am a genius, which I am obviously, a degree in copper wire scavenging and cardboard engineering is still not gonna fix the limitation of the material itself, which means cardboard is still cardboard, okay? It's still gonna like topple if you punch it or if you sneeze on it once. But to me, in my mind, it's part of the fun. And I'll definitely try and see if I can do similar projects in the future. And if you want to see those future projects, but all in all, I was really pleased with what I ended up with. I'm proud to say that not only does it work, but it works beautifully.
every 7 days there is a blood moon. Oh, God.
That bucket don't look like the whip we picked up.
What do you have to say about the family of 4 you killed?
Oh my god!
I can't explain it. I'm driving better while drunk.